All right, and we are ready to start our webinar. Welcome again, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you here today for this FedOSC webinar about the current federal open data landscape. We have quite a program for you today. We have plenty of distinguished speakers who will present open data services, infrastructures, projects, and stories, all in the scope of the FedOSC learning community. I would like to start by introducing very briefly what the FedOSC learning community is. FedOSC is actually a BELSPO operated, a BELSPO funded project that is meant to promote open science and fair data practices in the federal research community. It's operated together by BELNet and the Federal Scientific Institutes. So the collaboration is at the level of the whole federal research community. And the aim is to provide tools and resources to support open science and fair data practices in the federal research ecosystem, all in the hope of gaining a little bit more alignment with the broader vision of the European Open Science Cloud of more interoperability in research products, both in terms of frameworks, policies, and infrastructure. In doing so, we hope to increase the visibility and impact of federal Belgian research, making outputs more discoverable so that it can also be discovered outside of the community and foster more collaboration and more innovation. To facilitate the adoption of those open and fair habits, open and fair practices within the Federal Scientific Institutes, we are working with the philosophy of peer-to-peer support, which is why we are also presenting this as a learning community today. And because of the specific federal mission of boosting the value of our shared scientific heritage, there's also this additional benefit to the FedOSC project and the FedOSC mission. To be more specific even further, we have quite a bunch of work packages that is keeping the whole team busy. There's a team of 5 data stewards, consultants, partners in the FSIs at BELSPO, at BELNet, who are working to develop open science platforms and services, technical solutions to integrate the metadata, maybe a metadata catalog, a metadata service catalog, and a PID structure at the federal level overall. We are also planning on improving and evolving Orfeo and DMP Online as a better service. And the work package specifically that is keeping us busy today is the open science training work package. And this is where we are focusing our energy in building a FedOSC learning community. You may remember over the summer that we had a little bit of a survey to poll the needs and the wishes in terms of training of this community. And we used that to identify priority themes and needs, to create a training plan. And now those activities have kicked off. And this webinar is part of such activities. Webinars is not the only thing that we are doing as a community. We are also organizing in-person events and producing sustainable online research, training outputs, all in the philosophy of peer-to-peer support. But today, specifically, we're here to talk about the open data landscape and the open data ecosystem in which we work as the federal research community. We will start with a plenary session by our colleague Bart Hansens from data.gov.be. And actually, this program is a little bit different than what we will have today, because unfortunately, our Royal Natural Science Institute colleague could not make it today due to illness. Apologies for the inconvenience, but we will have one of the GLAM speakers, Istvan Dimish, as the second plenary speaker to introduce depositing and reusing data in SODA. And then we will be able to split into a GLAM track and a STEM track, depending on your preference, on your specialty, either to follow the talks of Edwin, Thuy, and Christina about tools and projects from the KIKIRPA and the Royal Library, or the talks of Laure and Pierre about open data infrastructure from the astronomy community. Thank you for listening to this introduction. Moving on with the first plenary session of the afternoon, I would like to give the floor to Bart Hansens for an introduction of the infrastructure we all know and love, data.gov.be. Bart, the floor is yours, and I will be your timekeeper. So please keep an eye on my video for signs of time running out.
Okay, if people get bored, let me know. As mentioned, data.gov.be, a little bit my pet project, but it's both a portal and a community. So for those who haven't visited the website, go ahead. Here's a quick screenshot. We try to be a little bit more than just a technical repository. We also like to promote open data events like this one, of course, the open data webinar, but also different other events, trainings, even job offers surrounding data, open data. We provide documentation and whatnot. It's not a storage facility, so if you would have some need to store data, we're not going to provide that service to you, unfortunately. We merely collect the data from, or probably a better word, the metadata from various sources. So we have federal repositories and federal website services. We have regional portals, we have local portals, we have thematic sources. It's a bit complicated as usual, and we try to collect as much metadata as possible from those sources. That can be statistics, geodata, transport data, but quite recently we started also collecting more scientific data. And you probably recognize your beloved portals there. So we have metadata from BIRA, thank you, Pierre, from Arvin, Soda, Ardeur, from KU Leuven, Louvain, Liège, and probably we gonna expand it even more. So we collect the metadata from various portals, we harmonize the metadata, and we put the result on GitHub, so everyone can collect the metadata there. It's weekly updated and use it for your own benefit. But it's also used by the European data portal, because of course there's not only the member states, there's also the European Union, and they also have quite a few data portals, with the EU data portal being the most important one. So no need to type your data or metadata twice. We just collect the metadata, send it to whoever is interested in, and so we can spread the word and the news. As mentioned, we provide quite a few news items on open data, events, on trainings, jobs. Feel free to send me a mail if you would have any news item you would like to present, or have it included in our overview. We do meetings. Of course, we do meetings. Everyone does meetings. But we try to gather all those portal owners in Belgium, and that are quite a few, and share some best practices, experiences, and do some presentations on interesting projects, like presenting the FedOSC network. And that's every 3 or 4 months. So I sent an invitation to, I think now 100 persons, and maybe it's 30, 40 people who are attending online to follow what's being discussed. Also, the report is published on data.gov.be, and so are the presentations. We like to collect documentation, so we provide also documentation on quite a few legislations that is applicable to various types of data. We also publish studies about open data. So if you would have a study saying, okay, thanks to open data, our economy is boosted by I don't know how many percent. That's something we also want to publish on our website. We have links to tools, so mostly open source tools. So if you would have any tools that you use frequently and it is pretty interesting to share, let me know. We can share it with the world. And we even have a chat room. So if you go on metrics.org, there's a data.gov.be chat room. It's all public. So I think we now have 140 people looking and lurking about all those events happening over there. So feel free to join there. What are the plans for this year? So we would like to add more information. So currently the section about training is a little bit, well, lacking. There are some pointers, but there could be more. Could be more to webinars, podcasts. For instance, if you're into statistics, both StatBel and eWebs do some interesting podcasts on how to interpret statistics, how the data are collected. So if any institution would have something similar on science projects, let me know. Then we can add them to the documentation section. We continue to improve the metadata quality. So for those into metadata standards, we are pretty much into DCAT AP, but most portals use something else. So we do some alignment over there and we do some improvement of the quality. So to make sure that interested parties have the most up-to-date version of DCAT AP available and also the most clean version as well. One thing we do is, for instance, harmonizing identifiers for organizations, but also for DOIs, ORCIDs, that kind of identifiers. And we're always looking for new data sources and for other portals. If you would be interested in being harvested, so we call it being harvested, let me know. But for, I think, most organizations, if you put your metadata already on a scientific portal, chances are that we will collect it sooner or later. So what's in it for scientists? We don't provide funding. So if you're looking for additional budget, sorry, we don't have either. But we can provide data, or at least provide assistance or help if you're looking for specific data sets. Doesn't matter if it's regional, federal, local, just let us know. If you're looking for contacts as well, as mentioned, actually the most important part of the portal is not per se the technical stuff, but the contacts with the various data owners. We like to share expertise and needs with a broader community. And as mentioned, we do not ask you to re-enter your metadata. That's something that we provide more or less as a service. And one question that came up was, well, what's the relation between FAIR and open data? Well, there is quite an overlap, of course. There are some differences, mainly on the emphasis of open data on being available and free to use. So well, FAIR is more focusing on reusability and interoperability. Open data, the data quality and the metadata quality is probably, well, it varies. So some sources are already into metadata management and can provide you with quite a few details and are aligned with international standards. Others are not. So the quality may vary a little bit. But of course, it's an additional source. FAIR, of course, is more about reusability. There could be other constraints, NDAs to be signed, or special agreements, for instance, only allow for scientific research and not for commercial use. But there's quite a lot of overlap. Hence, of course, this type of webinars where we share our expertise. And that's more or less what I would want to say. I would suggest that you check out datagov.be. For those interested into the nitty-gritty details about metadata, you can download quite a few things from our GitHub, like the DCAT AP RDF XML file. And if you would have any questions, you're free, of course, to send me an email or, contact the chat room. That's about it, I guess. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Bart, for this presentation. The link to the DataGov infrastructure is posted in the chat, so feel free to browse around. I think you've already answered that question that popped up in the Menti, but how do I get my repository on DataGov? This is sending you an email, right?
Yeah, so if you're data owner or a portal owner or a site owner, however you want to call it, and you have something that you want to share with us, send me an email and we'll contact you and see how we can best automate the collection of the metadata. It's, of course, related to data, so we are not going to republish, for instance, articles or each and every object in a catalog from a museum. We will probably say, okay, museum for us is one data set or one data source. But just send me an email and it's free. we provide some expertise there for free. No worries.
Cool. Thanks, Bart. And we are saving the other questions for the Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Thanks a lot. Feel free to continue typing your questions in the Menti as they come. And I would like to give the floor to our second plenary speaker of this session, Istvan. Istvan, the floor is yours now to tell us more about depositing data on SODA and also why.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is István Gyimás. Don't worry about pronunciation. So I will talk a little bit about SODA, how to deposit and how to reuse data there, but mostly I would like to focus on the question of, but why is this important? So why are we talking about this? Before we cut into the cheese, why do we care about depositing data? Why is open data important? Why are all the cool kids are doing data depositing? So basically, to think of it, when you make your data open and accessible for other researchers, then you basically support science and reproducibility of your data, which is one of the FAIR principles as well. While there are limitations of open data, such as sensitive data that should not be just freely given openly, all research data should be theoretically findable and accessible and reusable and so on. And lastly, and probably most importantly for any researchers, most funders expect you to do so when you run a research project. So what happens when we don't do that? I don't know everyone's field, but I am by degree in experimental psychology. Replication crisis is a huge issue. And one of the reasons for it is because, well, we cannot really check data if it's not available, or if the methodology was not clearly documented, or if the research analysis scripts are not there. And due to this incomplete data sharing, we are in a crisis, at least on my field, and to my knowledge in many others as well. And worst case of all, some researchers still fear making their data public for public scrutiny or any other issues. So what I would like to advertise here for is a small step for a researcher, just to give some take-home messages from this, how to keep your data clean, as it's not as difficult as it might look like. Just to remember to also deposit your analysis script, not just your data, because while we talk about open data in terms of, or the importance for a research data repository, reproducibility is also very important. So adding your scripts and codes are also important, and to use all the available tools and repositories in general. So a few numbers that I have recently encountered and I want to highlight of why this webinar is important and why generally talking about depositing data and open data is important. Here is this was a paper in Ecology about R codes and the deposited data and code for papers that have been published. As you can see, the majority of papers have been published without making their code or data accessible. And even when there was a code, the majority of codes never ran properly because of one errors or the other. Now, this issue is not limited to Ecology. You can also find another article discussing this issue on the Harvard Dataverse repository, where there is also the majority of the codes deposited next to data just do not run. And that's why I would like to stress how important it is to do a clear documentation and open access depositing of not just your data, but the analysis as well. Another point that I would like to raise here, just to talk a little bit about what's important for SODA, is to add a README or a code book when you add the data set or upload a data set for open access, because reuse is just as important as making the data itself available. And without a code book, it's really difficult. So how is SODA relevant here? Now, SODA, you can go to www.soda.be, which is the Federal Repository for Social Sciences and Digital Humanities in Belgium. Also, additional note, I will elaborate on why it's important, but we are the Belgian node for CESDA, which is a European consortium for social sciences data archives. So what can you do in SODA? You can deposit data, you can deposit your code. You can also do this very interesting thing that I would like to suggest everyone to do. You can just deposit your metadata and you don't add any files, whether it's because your data is sensitive and you don't want to put it out, or whether because you just started your project. It is a good practice to start with writing up your metadata, basically talking about your data management. You can do reuse, you can access these data from other researchers, and within SODA, you can nicely and diligently cite the data that you are using, because every data set submitted to SODA does have an assigned unique identifier, a DOI, and you can find data sets that are relevant for your research. Lastly, but definitely not least, we can provide support. No one expects any researchers to know anything by heart, because we are aware of how little actually the university educate people on it. So if you need support on how to make a good data documentation, which licenses would you like to use for your data, or just general support with using a repository, how to share your data, what is the responsible way, you can always just reach out to SODA if you want to deposit, but I would encourage anyone to any other data archives as well. We are very happy to answer questions rather than fix issues. Now, let's just run quickly on an example of how to deposit data. Basically, a few important things to remember is just to create as rich of a metadata as possible so people can understand what's going on there. To make sure that the file names are clear, you would be surprised how many people would like to deposit a data set called data.csv or similar, and make sure that the data within there is understandable. A few additional things, please use thesauri. The usage of thesauri and vocabularies is surprisingly low, and create, as I mentioned before, readmes and codebooks. And some good practices that, again, ask questions if you're unsure. The staff at every data archive is very responsive. Try to imagine that you're working with someone else. I feel hypocritical saying this. I am horrible at keeping my code clean when I'm working. And consider data management from the beginning of a project. So here is an example from SODA. There is a title of a data set. There are the authors of this data set. You can see the DOI that you can use when you cite or reuse this data set. You can give a description of your data set when you deposit, where you can explain what this data set is. You can also highlight, like in this case, that there is no data for this data set because it's restricted. So this is only a description of the data that you can request later on. You can also give a subject. If you give the term social sciences into SODA, that data set will, the metadata will also be added to the CESDA catalog, which means that the data will be visible within Europe in general. So you get a larger outlook. You can also see the related publication of what publication was produced from this data, and the license, which I'm not going to jump a lot on today. You can also, via SODA, contact the data owner, and you can see how many people have downloaded files from the dataset. So basically, if you go down and look the exact longer version of the metadata, you can see these parts, which I mentioned before, as well as a few things which are also very important to add when you deposit data, such as the language of the data set, where the location where you collected the data, the funding information, because the funder will be very happy that they are being cited, the name of the depositor, when the deposition had been done, when was the data collected. As you may know, in social science, the when and where data was collected from humans do matter a lot. Unit of analysis and other things. And if you're unsure about any of these terms, like what the universe is, you can just hover over the question mark and get a longer description. And if you're still unsure, again, feel free to reach out to us. One thing that I would like to highlight here, especially because I'm jumping a lot on vocabularies, is when you submit something that's social sciences, we encourage everyone to use the CESDA topic classification. You can click on the link on the when you deposit the data, and you end up in this website, which is the CESDA vocabulary service. Here you can use the appropriate terms for your data set, and that way you get a better tagging system for your data. Please use vocabularies. It's useful, and we are not advertising them enough how useful they are. A few other things that we do when you deposit data into SODA, you name your data set or the data. You can also give a structure for it. So when someone downloads all your data, it's in a folder structure, which can further encourage reproducibility of your data. And you can give a short description so everyone can understand what files they actually want to download. This basically looks like that you click on add data, you can add the file path, the description. When you click add data, you can decide which subrepository you would like to add the data under which license. Again, if you're unsure, please ask what the title of the data set is, who the authors are, point of contact, and so on and so on. I'm not going to bore you with all these fields. One thing that's important, please use every identifier that we can. ORCID is a very useful tool to summarize all your work, so try to do your best. And in case you are interested in a bit of shock therapy of why it's important to document your code properly, here is an example that you can access on our test instance, which is test.soda.be, where I have created a shock therapy file. You can also see that when you want to publish a dataset, you can click publish dataset. But if you want to try to understand a badly documented data, I highly encourage people to try it and be shocked by how horrible it can look like when someone doesn't do good data documentation. So at the end, just a few take-home messages. Why is it relevant for you? Data documentation is important before you submit your data for open access, because just to shovel your data into a repository is not going to encourage reuse of the data. So it makes it easy to understand the data structure and for other researchers to follow your analysis and use that data later on. It also makes you very cool when you know how to do data documentation. Sharing your data is good. We can combat replication crisis. We can support future research, and you can strengthen your own research by being supported by your data. And you can also use the already available data. If you collect some data and you want to enrich it, try to link it with already existing data. See whether the cohort that you have collected information on has other values that someone did. Create new high-value data sets, and the best part of it, boost your and each other citation score. Apparently, that's how we are being judged in scientific institutes. So thank you very much for all your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Istvan. That was a great presentation. Thanks a lot. I agree that data management does make us look very, very cool. I might want to add something before we move to the split session. SODA is an infrastructure. It's the CESDA node. I would also like to mention that it organizes, on occasions, very interesting events, and that there's a summer school coming up in the month of May. That is joined with, so it's the EDDI SODA Summer School. I'm going to post a link in the chat box in case you want to know more. But if you are interested to go a little bit deeper into GLAM data management, check it out. Check out the summer school. Do you want to add a little something about the summer school, Istvan, or have I said enough?
I think you have said most of it. It is the summer school is aimed to just spark a little bit of debate and discussion on digital and physical preservation of data, the concepts that we use. So more of I would like to have at least a shouting match between physical and digital archivists.
Great. So the link is in the chat box, and feel free to check it out. Thank you, Bart and Istvan, for a wonderful plenary session, which is now coming to a conclusion. We will be now moving to the split sessions. And just for practical reasons, I will stop the recording in this room and give you a brief re-explanation on how to choose your room corresponding to the track that you want to attend.